Okay, if you guys will, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Welcome to our June meeting of the Washington County Democrats. I am your chair, Eric Turway. We have our vice chair in attendance, Celeste, our secretary, Rebecca. Our affirmative action officer is out sick today, so send all your best thoughts to him. On your agenda, you will find that we have a little switch to make. Naomi Andrews is our speaker tonight, but she is running a little bit late. So what we will do is we will move ahead to the approval of the minutes and continue from there. And then when she shows up, we will give her the floor. On the back side of your agenda, you guys will see the meeting minutes from May. If you will, just take a moment to look at those. Are there any corrections that you see that need to be made? Our secretary usually does a pretty good job. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes, please? Thank you. A second? Perfect. Any objections? Nope, then they are approved. Thank you, guys. Our reports. Rebecca, do you have a report this month?
I don't.
Okay, thank you. Celeste, can you give us a bank update?
I have the Argus bank account is at $3,470.87.
Perfect. And for those of you on Zoom, that's $3,470.87 in our bank account. Then I don't have anything to add specifically about that. Yesterday or Tuesday, we had our primaries. We got all the results back. We have one runoff in the Democratic on the Democratic side for Senate. Madison Horn and Jason Bollinger will be facing off in August. So if you need some more information about them, ask around or ask us. We've had both of them come to speak with us. We have their videos posted on YouTube. If you'd like to go back and review their answers or see what they didn't answer well and ask them again, please do that. But do reach out if you have any questions. We had a lot of people ask us about who should I vote for? What information do we have? We're always happy to share what we do have. So do reach out. The runoff is August the 28th. And for those of you who may not be registered to vote, maybe you're new. I see some faces that I have not seen before. So if you're not registered to vote, we have voter registration forms back there. If you know someone who needs to vote before the runoff, they need to be registered by July 29th. If you'd like to request an absentee ballot for the runoff, if you don't want to go and do it in person, you need to request that by August the 8th at 5 p.m. They're pretty strict about that stuff. And then you can do early voting. If you don't want to wait, you can do early voting on the 18th, the 19th, and the 20th of August. August 18th and 19th from 8 to 6, and the 20th from 8 to 2. Question?
August 28th, it's got to be 30.
Or the 23rd, I'm sorry. I can't read my own writing. Yeah, I'm so sorry. My 8 looked like a 3. The 23rd, yeah. Yeah, you won't show up on a Sunday unless you just want to go to church that day, It's the same place for many of us, yeah. Yeah. That's at the election board. Yeah, so
The City Hall building, and they're on the 4th floor, and that is where they did the early voting last time, on the 4th floor.
So for those at home, early voting is 4th floor at City Hall here in Bartlesville. Yep, so early voting is the 18th and the 19th from 8 to 6 p.m. from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then the 20th, you can vote from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m.
I don't want you to know where you're going to vote.
Yep. Yeah, your polling place will be the same one you voted for this time. And if you didn't vote a couple days ago, verify that you know where you're going, because there were people who showed up, you know, in Oak Park or wherever it was, and they just didn't have a place to vote. So then they were asking, where do I vote? So,
Quite a few polling places changed.
yeah. Irene. Yep. Right. And you get a sample ballot. Yep, yep. The regular voting is the 23rd in person. Okay. Any other questions about the runoff? I will see if the candidates would like to come back if you guys are interested, but we would only be able to host them next month. We have a speaker lined up for, oh, well, I think the August meeting is too late anyway. So I'll see if they're interested in maybe joining us for a Zoom session. Maybe both of them would like to answer some questions for us. So I'll reach out and I'll ask them what they're interested in, if anything. Okay. The next thing on our agenda is the discussion for the Roe v. Wade overturn. I know that there are some people who are here today because this happened last week. Haven't seen some of you before, and some of you, it's been a long time. So our question for you guys is what exactly, sorry, it's down the video. What exactly is it that we would like to do in response to this? I know that many people are angry. I would like to scream, you know, punch a wall or something, but we need to talk about effective strategies for actually affecting change in our communities. So we don't have all the answers as officers, and I'm curious what it is you guys are interested in doing here in town. Would you like some kind of rally? Would you like education? Would you like you know, a place to go out and scream in public? I mean, what is it that is going to motivate you to stay motivated through November, I guess is my question. Yeah.
I think the only thing we as Democrats can do to really have a positive action is to let people know we have got to get out the Democratic vote. We've got to wake people up. And if they've got one foot in the grave, we've got to kick it back out so they can vote. We've got to go to our young people. We need to connect, but we have to stress the importance that unless we, and I'd love to see everyone do this, let's get one more blue seat in Washington.
Right.
And
There
yes,
are,
but,
yeah.
But we need to get to them, and I think, I don't know if you guys watch Midas Touch on the internet. They are the fastest growing Democratic movement of lot of brothers. And they have done this wonderful outreach with all these YouTube videos. But they talk about what is going on today, every day, and they give you the legal aspects. They're saying we need to, they're saying just go out, find one neighbor and introduce yourself. If it's somebody you don't know, find common ground. And then if you find out that it's gun control that they're wanting, if they want common sense gun control, but they're a Republican, let them know they need to vote blue this year.
Yeah, I think that's
If we can get enough people voting blue and enough people in office, then we won't need to filibuster. And I'd like to see Oklahoma just one from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Basically, and we this 1,000 times. Right now, yes, there are demonstrations. There's nothing gonna happen in Cartersville, and you all know that. There's one happening tonight in Tulsa, there's one happening tomorrow night in the courthouse in Tulsa. If you want to go to Tulsa, connect with me or whatever, I always post something. I know when there are. Basically, if you want to do something now, Cartersville is not going to do anything on the federal level. The only thing I can tell you to do as far as the local level is concerned, start writing to your senators, start writing to your representatives. Don't write them just on a Monday, forget about it. Email them every single day.
Right.
Write a note once a week. Write the same note 7 times and mail one every single day. That is the only way you can get at your local level.
Right, and for those who are interested, just really quickly, if you are interested in going to that Tulsa rally tomorrow, it's called the Get Mad, Stay Mad protest at the district court, which is 500 South Denver, and it's at 4 o'clock. So if you are interested in protesting now, tomorrow is a good opportunity for you, like Karen was saying, in Tulsa. To that point that she brings up, though, writing your congressmen and women, calling them on the phone. These are effective strategies for making change in Washington. Not everybody will pick up the phone and call a congressman. They just won't do that. That's intimidating to them. For some reason, they don't think of that other person as a human being on the other end of that phone. They think of them as power and they won't call. So picking up the phone is very powerful. Writing letters to the editor for papers is also a good way to get an opinion out there. Thinking, you read a lot of opinions in our papers that are not the kinds of opinions I think that you probably share in this room with me. But that's because there's a lot of people writing insane things that are conservative and crazy to our paper. And that's why you read them. It's time for us to start writing. I mean, if I asked you to raise your hands right now, how many of you have written to the paper in the last year? Yeah, 3 or 4 people. I mean, it's going to take more than just a few people engaging in this process to make change. I know we were talking about young people. My 17, well, I won't say which one, but I have a niece who, she is coming out of the woodwork too. She is ready to finally be engaged. Her mother is ready to be engaged because of this issue. And I think that if we strike now, while they're engaged, while they're motivated, we can rope them in and get them to be loyal voters for, civil rights, for voting rights, for the environment, all kinds of things. So yeah, question.
I myself have felt kind of because I felt like there wasn't a lot of people
Okay.
in my area, and I was physically getting to fulfill
Okay.
that. So I think that it would be helpful if we were able to have
Okay. Right.
It feels like they're distant from the activities that really feel like part of have a community that when they're isolated, targeted, family, or if they just aren't aware that there are other people.
All right. Well, and to have a protest here in town, and then you're next, I promise. It's a 45-day process, and I'm happy to put in that permit. It's just something that I wanted to ask the group. If there's no interest, I don't want to be the only one standing out there, being yelled at by the Trump train as it rolls by, so. Yeah, so it's.
We can go out, if people want to go out there along, you said we have a license to do that.
I mean, you are welcome to do whatever it is you want as an individual, but as the Democrats, I am responsible for the group, and I know that I will be the one getting in trouble if we show up and we don't have a permit. So as far as we're concerned, we will have a permit when we protest.
I don't know the whole street from Bartlesville, the whole street for Tulsa, but we did the march in Tulsa. As long as we stayed on the sidewalks,
But they have permits.
Yeah, exactly. Our
Once
permits.
you start marching and crossing streets, you have to
Yeah.
have permits. That's
So-
where they are.
I'm not really sure
Yeah.
how the permit
So when I read it, it was for a group, if you were going to have any kind of signage, anything that could potentially cause any kind of disturbance, and they specifically mentioned signage in there. And I thought, well, we're not going to show up with no signs.
Yeah.
And it said sidewalks even, so I just thought, listen, they're passing laws to prevent us from doing exactly what we are supposed to be able to do under the First Amendment. And it's,
One where they can run you down.
yes, exactly. So we just want to make sure that if they are going to make these rules, we're going to follow them. We will beat them at their own disgusting game if we have to, until we can change the rules and make the game better for everybody. Yep.
Okay, well, I was just thinking.
I also think that there's a lot of Republicans, I met several who think that they're Republicans, but when you actually talk about specific topics, they don't even like that.
Yeah.
And so I think that education is like really important on issues, I think people wake up themselves and realize, oh, you gotta know, start talking about specific issues.
Right.
And start making people realize, what is socialism? What is it really?
Right.
All these key words that they use against us.
Yes.
They don't even realize that, they're arguing about their medical bills and thinking, why can't we get medication paid for? Well, maybe you really do want socialized
Right.
medicine,
Yeah.
And you just don't even really know it.
Speaking of making change at the local level, and changing like the city rules and stuff, city council elections also happen this fall. And currently we have someone who's friendly towards us in Ward 2, Paul Stewart. He is not running for reelection, and we need someone good to run for that seat, Ward 2. It includes Colonial, I would say maybe Park Woodland.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly where the borders are.
Yep.
Okay, but if anyone has any interest in running for that seat themselves, or if you know anyone who might be willing to run for that
So
seat,
Rebecca's talking about city council, and we need people to run for city council in Bartlesville, especially Ward 2, because we have a pretty awful candidate running right now.
Are there few?
Oh, are they?
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay. That's encouraging.
Anyway, I just wanted to. That's good enough.
He's a good Republican.
Yeah, yeah.
But he is retired. He understands.
So there are actually two for Ward 2, Chelsea Wagner and Lauren Roselle, which we did not know about him running.
Is up. Well, it is a nonpartisan race, so you can't make too much of your party when you're doing it. But I honestly don't know if anyone's running.
No.
Where do you
I-
get?
You can get the city website has it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, Celeste.
Okay, I just want to go back to the rally.
Yep. Thank you.
So we're talking about is organized help move along streets. So as individuals, I'm not an attorney, but everybody has their First Amendment right to say what you want. So I know that kind of Black Lives Matter, so the black out, we have that sign on the front. Now, there's a little art to it. You have to pretend like there's an invisible. So you and your sign cannot. Yes, that's, yeah, that might cause problems for drivers. So, yeah.
The place that I basically stood every day was on the grassy knoll in front of Murphy's gas station. And the reason I chose that place was number one, the whole town is still. Number two, they can't stop in front of you. And you know what's coming up behind you. You got to make it rain. And that's the reason I chose that. But that would take
So speaking about a rally, if we did some kind of rally, would we want to do it somewhere like that, like out on the highway? Or many of the rallies that have been taking place have been taking place near courthouses because of the nature of the decision. And so I'm just curious, again, what your thoughts are, what you're most comfortable with, what you think would be the most visible, yeah.
That it is kind of, ideally somewhere where if people want to talk about this, we would be.
Okay.
That we see this important, very important. But also in case anyone wants to stop,
They would stop, I had people stop, would people stop, and they went into the gas station, they came up, they brought me water, they brought me food, and they talked to me. The bad people who wouldn't stop, but I knew they were coming, and they couldn't stop on the highway, like on the street or something, they're gonna stop.
that makes sense.
And when you do it in front of the courthouse, it has to be after hours.
Mm.
So if you do it like at night or on the weekend, there's no one to see them. Whatever we do, we need to make
I
sure
thought
that
that'd be good moment.
the television and radio.
Every time we have a, we may not think it's a bigger thing, we have people, and have registration.
Right.
The other thing that I've been involved in both in the, when it takes for the program, the other is not for getting out to people who vote.
Right.
So, I mean, that's gonna be.
Right, and we.
Not just in Washington County, everywhere.
Right, and Roberta makes a great point. We have got to do a better job of getting out and getting our neighbors to the polls. We have got to start knocking more doors in the fall. And that's something that we have to start planning now. I mean, we cannot wait until September or October to start talking about knocking on doors, or we've already lost this race. So it's good that you bring that up. We will plan for that. Yes.
I agree with Roberta, and I also, we're trying to do like 3 things at once here. We've got this organization that we want to try to bring more people in, to be more active. So we're going to try to really raise the visibility of the local Democrats, because people still don't know where they're. So we're trying to do that. And one way to do that is the same with the candidates. So we would have a list where it would be on the phone. And we take one here and we drop this call it drop and take it to somebody for the party. Knows who they're gonna get. So you're not just going to. You don't have to knock the door.
Right.
You just go and you put it on the door and you get it. And I think it's interesting in doing that. Because I love to do that to kind of lay the groundwork for later.
Right.
So the plan is build our organization, find candidates that you believe in and help their campaign, just donate, you know. And then just in case, you know, we're kind of here doing what we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're reporting, have done it before, you can do it for any campaign anywhere, and they give you a list of about 200 things on your phone, you have to hit send one at a time, that's how you're not doing it bulk, so you don't have to do a bulk email or bulk text, you're literally sending a text. Person saying, hey, I support this person, I hate you too, or you vote, or this, and then maybe about 10% text back. They're like, yeah, I want to register, yeah, let me know that, we'll come more. Usually it's pretty much. And it's so chill, it's like.
Yeah. We'll send them out. And she brings up a good point. Some of you are going to feel not motivated by the candidates in Oklahoma. Some of you will feel like it's a lost cause even this year. I know how that feels. So find a cause that's not lost. There are 50 states in our union, and every single one of them is important, and every one of those races is going to affect you at the national level. So find a purple state. Find a blue state that's moving red and keep it blue, but do something. Volunteer for someone. Give someone $5, text bank for someone, call for someone, write for someone, knock for someone, but do something, please. Yeah, so every email that we send out has links to campaigns, especially the local ones like Naomi that you will see today. During the primary season, we linked all of those campaigns so that you could get involved with those campaigns if you wanted to. During the primaries, our hands are tied with who the candidates are. We can't throw our weight or support behind any particular candidate until they've cleared the field and they've emerged as the candidate. So you know, for the Senate race, we still have Jason and Madison Horn who are still running. I wish that had been settled so that we could be fighting Langford instead of each other for 2 more months, but it is what it is. So find a candidate, please get involved.
All your weight behind one candidate, put your weight behind Democrats, whether it's 2, 3, 5 Democrats. If you're gonna write letters or make phone calls, trust me, making phone calls is not that intimidating because you will get a script and you will be talking to like-minded people. Out of 20 phone calls, you may talk to 2 people. But, you know, writing something, everything you do is scripted. So when you come in and say, I want to volunteer, you know, don't be, you know, there are things, what is your biggest strength? Talk to people. Do you want to walk? Are you able to? Do you want to call somebody? Do you want to write a letter? Do you want to write just a postcard? But do it, you can do it for more than one candidate. Do it for Democrats.
Right. And
And I do want to say that League of Women Voters, there was an awesome last school year. The League of Women Voters, we always had something going on with the kids trying to get them registered to vote and everything. This year, Vanessa Drummond started something. Instead of going to the kids as adults, vote, you know, preaching your heart out, and they're like, yeah, well, I don't care. She had she said something and she worked with the counselors. She got 75 new registered voters. They registered to vote, they got into a school bus, they went and they voted that day. I mean, it was a very big push. They did a lot.
right back here, yeah.
I might be out of line, it's going to be a different subject. What kind of reception did you have at the West Side Community Center?
Yeah, we had a great reception. Like, how were we received? We were welcome. Lots of people stopped by our booth while we were there. It was probably the warmest crowd in general that we're used to having. It was wonderful. It was not a large crowd. It was small, but it was wonderful.
Looking out, I don't see a single person of color in here. And that is the part of town that is really going to get hurt with this abortion. It's not going to hurt. It may inconvenience people in this part of town. Just like when I was 70 years old, Barnesville High School, the fathers knew how to get their daughters an abortion.
Right.
And they're still relevant.
Right,
But that's who's going to really get hurt
right.
over there. And that's where I think we really need to put.
Where we need to, and he's not wrong. That is a place in town where we should be focusing our efforts. Because whether those people believe it or not, whether they realize it or not, you know, the west side of Bartlesville is going to be more affected than most because they're poorer. I mean, that's just the way it is. If you are poor in this country, you have committed the crime of not being successful enough and you will be punished. And that is the message we have gotten loud and clear from the GOP all across our country. Really quickly, before we invite our speaker up, I will work on getting an event planned for those of you who would like something to attend here locally. We will do that for you. Upcoming events, if you're interested in serving at or attending our booth, helping people register to vote, talking about Democrats, encouraging people to get involved, we will have a booth at Freedom Fest on July 4th from 5 to 9:30. We have signups online. If you don't want to sign up online, see one of the officers today. We will sign you up ourselves. July 28th is our next monthly meeting. Please make sure that you are planning to come for that. Barbara, do you have one last announcement?
budget to get another drop down like you have this.
Yeah, we're gonna have to change our drop down sign because this isn't happy. I know what you would like to put on it and the answer is no, I'm sorry. The state has said exactly what we're allowed to put for messaging, and that's what our signs will have to be. They have to do with healthcare, they have to do with education, and they have to do with jobs. And that is all that we're allowed to do.
Can't
I would-
talk about voters' rights or anything.
That is not what our chair wants us promoting. She didn't like this sign last summer when she visited us in June, told us that she'd like it changed. And if we're gonna change it, those are the three things she'd like to see on it. Made it pretty clear. So, yes, sorry. I mean, you can talk about, right, you can talk about that. She just wants our message. Here's the thing. The Democrats are a big tent party. And a lot of people come here for protection, for other, for lack of a better word, from, the majority GOP party, whatever. So we have a lot of people who are very interested in one thing. We have the environmentalists, we have the LGBTQ community, we have people who are abortion rights activists, we have people who are interested in voters' rights. And the problem is that our message gets so diluted because we are trying to do so many things all at once that we don't reach enough voters here in Oklahoma. And so what they've done is they've decided that these issues, healthcare, education, and high-paying jobs are the things that resonate the most with Oklahoma voters. And that if we're going to make any root or if we're going to make up any ground in the middle, and those centrists, those moderates, those are the issues we have to push. I may not agree with that. Those may not be the things that I would like to push, but we are not our own organization. We are a constituent part of a larger organization called the Oklahoma Democratic Party. We have a constitution and bylaws, and our chair is within her rights to ask us to keep our message simple. I will comply.
And anyone here,
No,
we send representatives
yep,
to the state every 2 years. Sorry.
yeah, every
So,
2 years.
If we vote for our leadership, and we vote for the representatives we're gonna send to the state to vote there. So you're all welcome. If you want to change what the state's doing.
Right,
Stay involved.
That will
and
happen
vote
next
at
spring.
the state
yep.
convention.
Okay, so can I ask, if we're going with whatever the state says, but we're out working, can we have a shirt?
You can have
that
whatever
says-
you want.
That says.
Barbara, you can do whatever you want as an individual. As a group, though, we have our hands bound. Without, right, as a group, our message needs to be in line with the state. You as an individual, though, I mean, we're the Democrats. We're not going to, tie your hands. My hands are tied, but yours aren't. So,
If you have
yeah.
any questions, Alicia Andrews, who's the state chair, is on Facebook Live.
Yep.
Every single night.
Yep.
4:15.
Okay.
At 4:15, or you can go and you can look at her back talks, whatever. You can ask questions. As she's talking, ask her questions, she'll answer it. Every single day, she is on.
Right. Alicia Andrews.
Alicia Andrews.
She's our state chair.
State chair.
Yep.
She's on Facebook, on the Oklahoma Democratic
Yep.
Party. Facebook page.
Okay, our speakers, finally. Naomi Andrews is running for United States House of Representatives, our congressional district. There was no primary for her. She has been our candidate for a little while now. Naomi has recently served as the vice chair of Congressional District 1 Democrat leadership. When we were in CD1 with her, she was a staunch supporter of Washington County. Anytime I felt like we were being left out or pushed to the side or marginalized or forgotten, Naomi was always there to remind people that we are a part of this group, even though we were much, much smaller than Tulsa. She is a fierce advocate for minorities, for the people who are forgotten, those who don't have a voice. So if you guys will, please join me in welcoming a good friend of mine and your next U.S. Representative, Naomi Andrews.
Well, thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm gonna take this off for now, and thank you for waiting. I really wanted to make sure that I had some literature to bring to you guys, and I just used the rest of my literature the other night in Ottawa County. So I was waiting for it to be finished to be able to get here. I wanted to make sure and have that for you guys. Oh, and hi to everybody at home, anybody who's here. And thank you for having a Zoom link set up. That's so important that we make things accessible for people, not just in COVID times, but there are people who can't make it for any number of reasons, perhaps because of health, because they don't have childcare, and it's great that we're being inclusive as a party. So as Eric said, I have been the CD1 vice chair for a while and loved having Washington County with us. Familiar with Eric and Karen and both of them, and Emily, well, I'm sorry, Molly Tyndall. Love all of them. And I see the work that you guys are doing up here that you guys did in 2020. And I see how active and engaged you guys are. So a little bit about me. I am a mother of 4 children. I don't normally lead with that, but I tend to forget to throw in some of those details. You won't see a lot about my children on the campaign page or on the campaign trail, and that's because I'm trying to protect them from some of the hate that I'm already getting. They're 13, 14, 15, and 16. I know, right? Am I crazy or what? And I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. And then I became a single mom. And I've had a lot of experiences in the past 7 years as a single mom, including losing nearly everything, being homeless, walking out of divorce court to see that the family car was being towed away because the bill hadn't been paid by the other side like it was supposed to. And just being really at probably the lowest a person could be. But I had support. I had people who were willing to let my children and I stay with them, my college debate partner, Bethany, and her husband. And without them, I really don't know what would happen. During that experience, I was told that I did not qualify for government assistance, temporary assistance for needy families. I couldn't, there were job requirements, there were things that you had to do. And I was trying to get those things done, but they said, you know, you're so smart that you're not who this program is created for. They said that you would have to sit in a job training. I was trying to find a job, but I didn't have it. So you either had to be working like 20 hours a week or you had to attend these job training classes. And they said, you know how to do these things that we teach people to do. You already have your resume, you already have experience. And I just couldn't believe it. Like, if a homeless mother of 4 kids without a car wasn't capable of getting government assistance in this state and in this country, then who could be? And the people who could be, even though they provide job assistance programs or whatever, how are they being treated? The fact that they felt like they could bring me into this secret that I was too smart to be on their program was a big clue, right? But I was eligible to get food stamps or SNAP. I was eligible to get my children on Medicaid. I couldn't get on the housing program. So thankfully, my friend Bethany and her husband allowed all 5 of us to stay in their 2 spare rooms for 6 months. And I got my first big kid job, thanks to Amy Hossein, who is now part of Tulsa County. And she's a great person if you ever get a chance to meet her. She gave me my first opportunity. And I started in advertising at Tulsa World. And from there, I have done a few different jobs, mostly in the communication sales, marketing sector. From advertising and marketing at the Tulsa World to working as a national sales manager at a wholesale distribution company in Tulsa, ORS NASCO. You probably haven't heard it. And that's because the industrial supply chain is kind of the biggest secret industry that most people aren't even aware of until COVID and until now with inflation. And one of the things that I noticed while we were there is how the very people who, when I was a child, would say, buy American made, made in America, like the blue collar workers that I knew in this area, they had no problem with all the products coming from overseas as long as it was cheaper for them and for their company, or they made a profit off of it if they were a salesperson. But I watched as disruptions in the supply chain, one of the vendors, Loctite, you may know them as the glue manufacturer, they produced the medical grade adhesive that was used to attach the cotton swab to the end of the flu swab and the strep throat swabs. And I'm assuming, I wasn't there during COVID, but I'm assuming they later did COVID. And when their factory was shut down, we had a back order of flu test because of something as simple as a component, a piece of glue. And I saw the struggles that people have getting products shipped from overseas. So I learned a lot in that industry about how larger companies were coming in and closing down the mom and pop shops. Places like Fastenal or Granger would go and they would buy up these small businesses who couldn't wait on back orders. Their prices already had to be higher because they couldn't buy in bulk as much as these larger companies did. And so when you had a problem at the factory, a problem with shipping, anything like that, a lot of these issues stemming from it being overseas. A lot of other countries have holidays that we don't. And in China in particular, they close down during the new year. The factories might be closed for a month. People live at the factory. They have dormitories attached to the factory. And a lot of people would make resolutions at the new year, just like we do. And that might include moving someplace else, being closer to family or trying to get a new job. And so every year we would see those disruptions. Now, that's not to say that people don't deserve to celebrate the holidays and things that they have, but by bringing jobs back to America and by prioritizing financial incentives for companies to do so, we would see a significant amount of our supply chain problems go away, which in turn would affect the prices that we're paying at the register. How many of you guys here have struggled this past year? I mean, maybe it's only me, but have struggled to keep the lights on or to fill up your car or to fill up your grocery cart, right? You know, my rent has doubled in the past 4 years. My income has not. Now it's a little bit more than it was 4 years ago, but that's only because I left one company and went someplace else. And all over this district, I see people who are affected by the economic conditions, by companies outsourcing jobs, by disruptions in our supply chain. And I don't think that any amount of complaining is going to make a huge difference. So that sounds a little negative, but why is that? Why is it that I don't see it getting done? Well, a huge part of that is because we have become so divisive that both sides have a hard time saying when somebody else has a good idea. And I know that that can be a little hard to hear sometimes. I know for the past few years, I've spent a lot of time angry. Not just angry about situations, but angry at people I had never even met online or people that I grew up with simply because of the way that they were registered. And while there are still a lot of issues that upset me, I realize that we won't be able to make any difference if we continue to just say no anytime something comes along. In order to start getting legislation passed, we have to start finding small areas, the least viable option that we can agree on. It's like when you're learning how to do a new thing, the first time you do it is really hard and you have it set on easy mode. And then each time it can become a little bit more difficult. And it feels like right now, we have a lot of great ideas for policy proposals that could really fix what we are facing in this country. There are pie in the sky things that I want to see done. In the Build Back Better infrastructure plan, some of the stuff that had to get cut in order to get passed, I really wanted those things. I wanted them for me. I wanted them for you. I wanted them for my kids, for, everybody's children. But I'm also thankful that we are now expanding rural broadband, that we got it passed. I'm thankful that the other day, the Senate and the House agreed on something to get gun legislation passed. Right? Exactly. And so, and I'll be honest, I learned how to shoot a rifle before I knew how to spell my name. I mean, I grew up in Oklahoma, right? And I've been around weapons. And as I got older, it became more of a problem for me because of personal reasons, but definitely because of the mass shootings that we see occurring. This past year, there were 3 instances in 1 week where my life was touched by gun violence. So the day after Uvalde, my children begged me to let them go to school. It's their second to last day of school. I wanted to keep them home. They begged me to go. And an hour after I dropped them off, I got a text message from the school saying that they were on lockdown because of a threat. Then a few days later, I was supposed to be in Taft, Oklahoma, where the mass shooting occurred after the Memorial Day event. But I was not there at that time because it happened later in the day. And I had other events and things as well. Then the doctor's office in Tulsa that was shot up, that was attacked, was my daughter's pediatric orthopedic surgeon. Not the doctor that passed, but that same practice. And Deb Proctor, the CD2 chair, so she's over you guys, now you guys are in a different district. She was in the building. And, my daughter's doctor's appointment got canceled, her follow-up. So I see these things that are happening. They're frightening me just as much as they are frightening you. But as I started pondering the questions about what policies would I push for, I realized that places like Broken Arrow, Wagner County, some of those places, if we were to pass the type of legislation that maybe we would want to see, if there was some possible way that we could get it through, that would become a very dangerous place to be. Especially after seeing what happened on January 6th. And so it got me thinking, how do I keep my integrity and my beliefs and talk about these issues with what I want in an ideal world and what would actually be possible? And I started studying a little bit. As I mentioned, I do marketing. And I came across a cognitive linguist that was talking about how we need to express our values. And a lot of people don't appreciate somebody who has an in-depth policy plan. I know Democrats do, but not everybody does. And it is really hard to fine-tune your messaging when you want so badly to win so that you can make a difference, but you also feel a little bit like a sellout while you're doing it, or like maybe you're not being quite honest. So I've started talking a little bit more about values, and I've started looking at ways to reach people who do not want to be reached, right? And I know that as angry as we get sometimes over these issues, that really we're not that different. The things that impact our lives are impacting their lives. The difference is that it's not even that we don't want the same ultimate solution, right? I don't believe anybody on the other side wants kids to die. I don't believe that they want inflation. It's just the process and the method. And so I'm starting to talk a lot more about things that I value, like freedom. And I'd been afraid to say that word for quite a while because I felt like that painted me as being super conservative, Republican in this state, and I didn't want people to get the wrong idea. But I do value freedom, like the freedom to make decisions about my own body. And I can tell you, I have never been faced with a difficult choice, with the difficult choice that some women are faced with. I personally haven't had to experience that. But I have experienced several times as the mother of 4 when I was not allowed to say what happened to my body, when I couldn't make the decisions. After I had my 4th kid, or right before I had my 4th kid, I wanted to get my tubes tied while I was scheduled to have a C-section because I couldn't decide not to have a C-section because I had already had 2 emergency C-sections. And so the hospital wouldn't allow me to make that decision. But I was like, well, I'm going to be open anyway. Why don't we just go ahead and fix this? And then we don't have to pay for another surgery for my husband. Everything would be good. And they said, no, we couldn't do that because they only delivered at St. Francis, and St. Francis is a Catholic hospital. I respect anybody who is Catholic, their beliefs, but the hospital was allowed to say that I couldn't have that procedure, even though my doctor was willing to do it and I wanted to have it. So instead, I got an IUD, and I apologize, this is going to get a little bit in depth, but I feel like it's important for you guys to understand how many times my rights were already taken away and other women's rights were already taken away while we still had Roe. So I was sick from the IUD. I couldn't handle it. And I asked my primary care doctor, I didn't want to go back to the OB because I had to get another referral. And I asked my primary care doctor if we could schedule a time to take it out. And she refused unless I agreed to get my tubes tied. Right? And now I was only 26 and I didn't have as much confidence to stand up for myself at that point. And so even though I was appalled, I agreed to do it because I'd kind of planned on doing it anyway. And she wrote the referral. And so I go back to my OB. And he said that he wouldn't do the tubal unless my husband came in and talked to him and signed a paper saying that it was okay. So that's another instance. And then right as I'm going under, the doctor says, are you sure you want to do this? Because what if you get divorced and your future husband wants to have kids with you and you can't? You're going to have to pay $25,000 to get it reversed. So the hospital got to make a decision for me. My doctor, my primary care doctor, got to push me into a decision. The OB is now tried to do it once, and now he's putting some hypothetical future second husband when I'm still married, putting some hypothetical future ex or future husband's hypothetical desires over mine. And I had to once again say, yes, I'm sure I want this. And during that process, it was not an easy surgery. There was, I remember being pulled up out from under the anesthesia while I was still on the table. And he told me that he had torn my cervix and my bladder when removing the IUD, and that I could potentially have some problems, and, you know, to come back and see him in certain instances. And I mean, I just kind of dealt with some of the side effects for a while because he was arrested for going to Missouri to try to sleep with a minor. But, you know, as my doctor, he knows best, right? I mean, clearly he makes good choices, and he should be able to make that decision for me or try to convince me to do something else. And then recently, in 2019, I was having a surgery, and they were going over my medical history with me, asking about my previous surgeries. And they said, so tell me about your ectopic pregnancy that you had in 2009. And I said, are you looking at the right chart? I was like, I didn't have an ectopic pregnancy. And they said, yeah, you did. It's right here on your chart. And they removed one of your tubes. And they said, it was when you had them tied. And I had no idea. You remember me saying that the IUD, I felt like it was making me sick? And that's because I had an ectopic pregnancy that was slowly trying to kill me. And now they fixed it when they tore my cervix and my bladder, removing the IUD, and when they tied the other tube. They didn't think that they needed to tell me, probably because he was too worried about liability insurance. Now, all of that happened while Roe v. Wade was still standing. So what do you think is going to happen now? Already, women in Texas are being denied methotrexate, a medication to treat rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and other autoimmune conditions. Why? Because methotrexate is also prescribed for abortions. Women, in order to access this medication, already have to take a pregnancy test and get on birth control. Now, some of you are probably thinking, well, Naomi, there are other types of medications that they can take, like biologics, like Humira or Enbrel. Not until you've been on methotrexate for a while, because your insurance company won't pay for it because it costs too much. So you have to prove that you've already tried something else. CVS pharmacies wouldn't fill women's prescriptions because of their new policy to follow the law in Texas, because they were afraid of their pharmacy being held liable for an unintended abortion. Again, hypothetical future pregnancies that haven't even happened. And these laws are already being used to deny women's rights. And it's gonna go on from there. Because as we become more accustomed to denying giving women the medication that they need because of these hypothetical scenarios that haven't even happened in most cases, we're going to grow accustomed to not treating women even more than we are already. Women's heart attacks are already misdiagnosed as anxiety more than they are correctly diagnosed. Pain is diagnosed as anxiety. And what we are seeing right now is the great gaslighting of women all across this country. Never in my life as a child did I consider the fact that I would have less access to freedoms and rights than a little girl in New York or Massachusetts or Vermont. And now that's what we're seeing happening. And it's people like my daughters and my son's girlfriend who are most at risk. Vigilantes are already going after women in states that have bounties of sorts for women who have had an abortion. And it's not even that you don't even necessarily have to prove that they've had an abortion. It's really just suspicion that they'll go and investigate it. I mean, if you can prove that, no, I haven't had an abortion, that this was an actual miscarriage, or no, they're just a crazy person who's like targeting me. If you can prove that, you'll be okay. But how do you prove that in a court of law that denies equal access to attorneys to our citizens? Because we all know that public defenders don't have the time or the resources to defend people who are accused of crimes that they didn't commit. They try to get you to take a plea deal and that's it. So you're going to have money in order to have a defense. But not only that, most people aren't aware that HIPAA policies allow a doctor's office to release your medical records to police if there's a suspicion of a crime having been committed. They can get a warrant, they can get a summons. There are a lot of ways for them to go about it. And so what that means is that our medical information is not private. We now cannot even confide in our doctors. And so something has to change. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know what I could do for that besides codifying, like voting to codify Roe v. Wade, but the House has already agreed to do that. It's something that's going to have to be passed on the Senate side. But I'm mad about it. And we need to have somebody who is willing to talk to people about those issues and about how it's going to affect them, and who can help them understand it's not just about the baby that they're talking about, right? It's not just about that. People who are never pregnant are going to be treated differently. You don't have to be pregnant to be affected by this change. And then now we've seen the ruling that came down today, where they're limiting the authority of the Environmental Protection Agency at a time when Oklahoma each year is either facing record drought or record flooding. Right? I mean, yeah, exactly, at the same time. And I never thought I would lose respect for the Supreme Court. But we see so many judicial activists right now. We have to start codifying some of these things. I'm not even following what I was going to say because I'm a little bit fired up and I'm a lot bit frustrated. Did you have a question? You can ask.
Now that we're District 2, and
Go ahead and hand those out.
the biggest, am I correct that Bartlesville is the biggest city, town in District 2? As far as Muskogee, okay. Compared to what we were with Tulsa.
Yeah. I mean, you are one of the larger places, definitely.
It's like 95% is rural.
Mhm.
So
How do we reach people?
that, how are you going to be able to, this is now ex Mark Mullins area.
Thank goodness for that. That's some good news, right? He's no longer your representative. I mean, he still might be your senator, but he's not your representative.
How can you get to the rural, the people in rural areas?
I'm glad you asked, and that's what we're passing out right now. So we are going to use a strategy called relational organizing. And I want you to take a look at the paper, and I'll talk a little bit about it. So studies have found when you have a personal conversation with a friend and you're saying things like, so I saw you made that post about education the other day and how you were kind of upset about what was happening. Can you tell me about that? What do you think about that? And you listen, you really listen to what they have to say. And then you say something like, well, I agree. And, you know, I heard this candidate who's running, who believes in a good quality public school education and in funding schools. Would you go to her website and check her out, maybe sign up or go to an event with me? Did any of you guys ever do any proselytizing growing up? Like, I mean, I know not everybody in here is religious, but yeah, I grew up in a very strict, fundamental way where knocking on doors, I was knocking on doors at a young age. And I am very used to telling people the deepest feelings of my soul and trying to convince them to believe the same way. And the reason why people do that and why you still see some door-to-door salesmen who you can very clearly tell have participated in that in their lives is because it does work, right? Like they're still getting people to join, right? It doesn't work on everybody, but it's much more effective to get somebody to join their church that way than it is to just make a post on Facebook, right? So this strategy has been proven to work. It's one of the things that Biden adopted in areas. And we're going to do an entire training program on it. So this sheet is really just for you to start thinking about your network. We're going to map our networks, anybody who wants to volunteer with the campaign. And you're going to have some personal conversations. Instead of text banking to a complete stranger, I'm going to ask you to contact people that are already in your phone that you think share our values, that maybe you've been, I don't know, upset by the things that are happening, so upset that they've lost hope. And you aren't for sure if they're voting every election. You aren't for sure if they're engaged. And that's the tactic that we're going to take to reach those people, because it works during COVID when you can't go to doors. And it works when you can't go to doors quickly. So we'll have quick phone calls, talk to them. There won't be scripts. There will kind of be some like stages that we'll explain in the training on how to have some of these conversations and what to do. I would ask if any of you are fired up, don't start contacting them immediately tonight once you think of it. You might want to, but go to my website, naomiforok.com/volunteer, and that's on the paper, and fill out the volunteer form, and we'll get you in there for training. I've kind of talked and rambled a lot. And I'll come back and let you guys actually hear a real speech instead of just some talking maybe, but anybody have any questions?
Hold on, Roberta, 1 second.
I've not been great, but I've worked with people that have young children, and you're trying to provide a place for them. And part of the next build back better plan was to provide childcare, some of these things,
Right.
which so many people need.
Yeah,
And I'm feeling like
on like universal childcare.
childcare.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, I was a mom of 4. Hi, thank you for being here. I was a mom, or I am a mom of four, but I was a stay-at-home mom of four. Not because I always wanted, or I continually wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. There was a time where I was like, I really need to go earn some money. But we would lose, we had benefits at that time,
Yeah.
right? Again, I was a completely different person back then, even growing up, and I did the math. They had a program where I could get a stipend to cover childcare here in Oklahoma, and I had to pay a copay. And so I was budgeting how much money, like how many hours would I have to work? What would I need to do to get the copay and to do it? And we were right at the top of the income limit. And wouldn't you know, once I earned enough money to cover my copay and to cover, I was going to have more like dinners that like, bringing home KFC or something for the kids because I would be working more and I would be tired. Like once I tried to budget for how our needs would change and that would affect the money, and I would get enough money to pay for the childcare, the copay, and pay for some of those other things and gas to and from work at a different job. Once I earned enough money for it, I no longer qualified for the subsidy. I would make too much money for it. And I think that that's actually the way we talk about it is really important because it's like, look, I hear you when you say that you want people to work for the money that they're given, right? And there are a lot of people in this country who want to work and they can't.
Yeah, I've seen people like that previous stuff where they couldn't get that, they had to stay home, they couldn't work that day.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was very frustrating for that.
Yeah.
Barbara, you have one last question.
I was asking about rates and
Yes.
you've been preparing for rates.
I can't say that I've been practicing recently, but you might be happy to know that in college, I was a national champion in speech and debate. I normally speak much better than I did tonight. And in college I did. So I have won several state championships, regional, state championships. I was a national champion and then nationally ranked in several events. I don't think that they're going to allow me to debate or that they will agree to a debate. So the plan is to do town halls.
They don't have to.
Yeah. And that's okay. That means I won't have to share the time on stage with them. The point is going to be like, and especially if you know Republicans who you think are in the slightest bit concerned about Roe v. Wade being dismantled, about the things the Supreme Court was doing today, about the things that they're going to continue doing. If they're concerned about January 6th, we need them on your list because I'm going to have to meet people on the other side and I'm going to have to win them over if we're going to win. Yeah. And so we're going to have to be persuasive without compromising our values. We're going to have to show how our values align and what we can do to make both sides happy.
We are running a little behind, so
Sorry.
That's fine, you're fine. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna kind of wrap up the meeting. If you have more questions, and I'm sure you do, stay back, ask them with Naomi while you're shuffling out. I know some of you guys came knowing that we are going over to the Price Tower to get drinks afterward. And you're probably like, so if you're ready for your drink, go ahead and head over to the Price Tower. We'll join you shortly.
One of the things I can recommend right now is as many as possible to get selfies or publishing on our Facebook pages
Yes.
with Naomi. So we do need to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Naomi. Help me
Thank you.
thank her for coming and speaking with us. Okay, the announcements really are just the Freedom Fest sign up. Please do sign up for that so that, we're not the only ones there. And then our next monthly meeting is July. Make sure to look for our emails. If you are not on our email list, you are missing out. That is how we communicate with you guys. So there are little teeny forms back there. You can just put your name and email address. or you can put as much information as you want on there, but get signed up. If you are not on our email list, you are forgotten to us. We do not know how to get a hold of you. So make sure you do that. Any announcements really quickly?
So should we forward you some of our friends who say they're Democrats, but you don't think they're on your email list?
When we put names into there, we have to have permission from that person to sign them up. So they have to sign themselves up or come to us with permission, but you can't just give us names of potential
So I-
people.
Forward your
Email to your
email
friends.
them and
Absolutely.
say, be sure and sign up.
Yes, you can do that. You can forward our emails to whoever you think would be a good contact.
Can I say
Good.
something about
Yeah,
that really
Naomi,
fast?
yep.
So also on this relational organizing thing, you guys will be in control of the data of your friends and family. The campaign will not. And so we will protect your data. In my day job, which I didn't tell you about, we study data privacy, privacy disclosures, terms and conditions, like we publicize a lot of that. So we will handle all the data ethically, will not contact people unless they sign up and opt in on the site. They will not be published.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. That's all we've got. Let's get a motion to adjourn so we can go have a drink together. Somebody? Yeah, a second. Perfect. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? We will see you next month, guys. Have a great last of June, rest of July. Bye. Stay angry.